Hello, this is Ryan Riccitelli with asnews.net, and today we have a very special guest, Don Montague. He's the designer of Naish Kites, and he's also one of the innovators of our sport who has really help a lot of people get on the water with kiteboarding. So, Don, why don't you introduce yourself and tell our listeners a little bit about who you are?
Thanks, Ryan. Well, I moved to Maui in 1981, and I was a professional windsurfer until around 1992. I started designing windsurfing sails in the early 80s, and that's what led me actually into designing kites. In around 1995, I started playing around with my first kites, and I was influenced a lot by Bruno and his brother, who were the patent holders of the inflatable kite design back then. And from what I saw that they had done, I saw that this was definitely the way to go, and it would be the easiest for the consumer to actually get into the sport. In the beginning, we had a lot of different kind of kites, ram air kites, tubed kites, barred kites, and everything was a little bit heavy and dangerous. And then when the inflatable kites came along, that was definitely an eye-opener. I guess one of the first guys that brought me into it was Manu Bertin, and he was into speed trials with windsurfing, and then later on he was one of the probably fathers of kite surfing in Hawaii. His was Laird Hamilton. Spent a lot of time going down the coast. And when I got into it, my main goal was to stay in the same spot and to go upwind. And that's most of my energy has been put into performance and safety for the last, I guess, 5 years, ever since we were able to.
And you also, you're attributed with helping really develop the chicken loop, and which has gotten thousands of people on the water and or kiteboarding altogether a lot easier for people to stay upwind. And why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the trim loop, aka chicken loop, basically allows you to change the angle of attack of the kite and allows you to depower the kite. The biggest problem people had in the early days was that you would get pulled off an edge. There would be just too much power in the kite pulling you downwind. So when I was able to actually change the angle of attack and less power, all of a sudden you wouldn't get pulled off this edge, and you could actually use your edge to propel yourself upwind. The other part of the trim loop is just the range of power that you can have in the kite. In the early days, we were all riding a 5-meter kite with a 7-foot board, and with the adjustable angle of attack, you're able to ride one kite on a small board and use, let's say, 50% of the kite all the way to 100% of the power that's there.
Well, and you've seen the evolution of so many kites, and this leads into, obviously, this year the hot kites are the bow SLE or flat kites, and you guys have developed one, and why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's basically taking my original idea to the next level. We experimented a lot over the years with pulleys and different arrangements, bridles on the kites. And up until, I guess, about a year and a half ago, Bruno came along with a design that would actually allow you to have more projected area and have this adjustable angle of attack. And instead of just being able to adjust it to 50% of the power, now we're able to adjust from approximately, 5% of the power to 100% of the power. So the range now for one kite is incredible. I personally ride a 9-meter kite in, for example, yesterday, 45 knots, and I can ride the same kite in 8 knots. It's amazing because with the new kites, you're able to actually change the projected area depending on how much you sheet the kites in. And this gives you this incredible amount of range. Some of the newer kites I'm making now are just, it's changed the way we ride the waves. Now we can drop in on a pretty big set and go all the way to the top and bottom, changing the angle of attack of the kite the whole time and actually surfing the wave rather than getting pulled down the wave. And that's changed the fun factor immensely. Even for myself, I was getting, quite bored just with the conventional kiting. But now I'm 100% back into it. And our conditions in Maui are so extreme. Usually we've got these 30 to 35 knot gust offshore days. And now it's a dream to go out there and ride in those conditions. I'm every time I go out, I'm amazed. I was out yesterday with Peter Tro, and we were the only guys out there, and it looked just so horrible. And we had the time of our lives.
Oh, that's awesome. And you know, like you're talking about the fun factor and with the new kites, and I've seen that even down here in Corpus Christi. It just seems that like people are just able to go out there and rather than just hold on for dear life, it seems like you're actually enjoying themselves on the water. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I've seen with these kites. But also, with any new kite design, there's obviously some design challenges. And why don't you talk a little bit about that?
I guess the biggest challenge is to, as you make a more projected kite, you kind of balance the trailing edge tension with the leading edge shape. And so there's a fine line to try and get the kite to do all the things you want. So, for example, it needs to relaunch easily, needs to land easily, alone, without help. You need to have deep power. It needs to turn quickly with no power, but it also needs to turn quickly with power, which allows you to jump. So to get all those parameters and variables to work together, that's the challenge. And there's really no magic in it. It's just hard work. I mean, we're out there every day changing small things, and all those things, all those small changes, result in the high performance kite. I mean, for example, if I change the leading edge length by 10 millimeters, that's the difference between a good kite and a bad kite. If you can imagine, a kite is actually breathing, and if the kite is not allowed to breathe, if the tension is wrong, then it's stalled, and it's either going too far forward in the wind window or too far back. And if the kite was, say, for example, a metal object, it would be very easy to design the correct shape, and of course, because it wouldn't change. But because the kite is a movable structure, it doesn't follow any rules like you would think. So even though you've designed in this perfect foil and all these parameters that you think are great, the end result is what you see is what you get. So when you look at the kite and you feel the kite, that's what you're working with. So sometimes the changes that you make to the kite don't necessarily reflect the 3D design, let's say.
I know there's a lot of work that you do to R&D in these kites. I mean, and I don't think a lot of people realize, how much work it is to get the feedback and to be able to produce a kite that then you can reproduce in mass production without issues. Obviously, we're also seeing a lot of these new hybrid style kites, and what's your perspective on those type of kites?
You mean, for example, you mean a kite that's halfway in between? Correct. Yeah. Well, there's a couple of brands that are making them. There's F1 is making the Tribal. I think Flysurfer has the Ion, which is I think is a little bit similar concept to the Tribal. I've ridden those kites, and they're really nice kites, and they allow the rider to move from a classic kite to a hybrid kite very easily. They give you a nice amount of D-power, but they're not, in my opinion, even close to the SLE kites. And the reason I say that is that the change in D-power in such a short range is like, it's the difference between riding a Ferrari, driving Ferrari, and driving a Beetle Bug. The response is so much quicker for D-power to full power. And the reason that the SLE kites can get that is because the changing projected area. And so if you can imagine, your kite gets bigger and smaller in area, whereas the sea kites with the changing bridle systems or having the center of effort at 70% instead of 40%, they're a nice transition, but they're definitely not, in my opinion, anywhere close to what the SLE kites can do.
Now, when you get into performance and lift and all that kind of stuff, like what's the differences you would see between like a C-shaped kite and then your SLE?
For example, you take an average guy who kites every day and you put him on the new kite, and all of a sudden he can do kite loops for his jibe. his riding ability increases so quickly because he's so comfortable and he's not afraid. And that's because the depower can happen only within 3 inches of travel. The kite can be 100% depowered. It's an incredible range. The other really interesting thing is that you can oversheet the kite, and the kite becomes bigger. So you know when you go along and the little lull comes, and you kind of start to fall back, and you really try to push hard on your edge, but there's just no power there in the kite to keep you going? With an SLE kite, you can actually increase the projected area by 20% by sheeting in. And you go right through that lull, and you never even feel it. It's like you're still doing 25, and your friend who's on a sea kite is stopped because he just doesn't have that range. He's not able to change the projected area. And that's possible because of the whole bridle and pulley system. We're actually having 2 or 3 kites in one by having this changed in geometry.
And a lot of people like that aspect of the SLE kites is the range, and like I said, I see it down here because we have such variable winds. Another thing that I think a lot of people are really interested in is, obviously, you've been really involved in kite boating and, in evolving that and just the growth of it. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, to get an idea, most people can't really comprehend what kite boating is, but if anyone's interested, they can go to kiteboat.com, and there's some videos on there that pretty much, tell the whole story. We're reaching speeds of 30 knots now. Some of the largest kites produced are over 100 meters, and we've tested on 50-foot catamarans. We've crossed the Molokai Channel. We've crossed from Maui to Oahu. And I'm personally pursuing it full speed. I'm working on a project now that's a 110-foot catamaran, and I'm planning on building between 500 and 700-meter kites for it. The most interesting thing with kite boating is, okay, I'm on the extreme side, and I'm looking for all the extreme things that I can do with it. Whether it's riding 20-foot waves or going as fast as we can in a hydrofoil cat or whatever. But the most interesting thing is the safety aspect of it. If you can imagine that you break down and you've run out of gas or your motor's quit or you've broken your mast, you can take a 5 to 10 square meter kite and easily pull yourself back to shore. If you're in a life raft and you're looking to be found and there's boats on the horizon but they can't see you, if there's a little bit of wind, you can fly out tight, and it's a signal device. And it's also a propulsion device that can actually pull you in a broad reach or beam reach or downwind direction. So if you see land or you want to get to safety, you can use the kite to propel you. So for me, the kite boating is a promotional vehicle to make more awareness to the general public that the kite is actually a really good safety device. It's not the only safety device, but it's definitely part of your arsenal, along with your flares and your life jacket and your EPIRB, and it's another tool, to help you along the way.
Well, how similar are the kites that are flown with the kite boats to some of the kites that we kiteboard with?
But the main difference is the power and the stability. With kiteboarding, let's say, for example, you want a high jumping kite. The profile is going to be, a little thinner, a little faster. The kite's going to jump out in front of the window quicker. The aspect ratio is going to be a little higher, so there's more lift, in relationship to the length of the leading edge. So that's going to allow you to jump higher. With a wave riding kite, it's a little lower aspect ratio. The kite sits a little bit further back in the window. It always has power when you want it, so that it's never dropping out of the sky. And for the kite boat, basically the kite has an incredible amount of pull and power and stability. So, when you edge really hard in the old days and you could actually collapse the kite, that's a big problem with the kite boat. So the kite has to maintain its shape very well because the boat is so heavy. And imagine if you drive the boat upwind, you're putting an incredible amount of energy into the kite.
Well, Don, I know we're running out of time, and I just want to thank you for coming on the show, and I just want to give you a chance to give a shout-out to Anybody or
Yeah, just everybody be safe out there, because of course our sport is extremely dangerous in the wrong hands, and please abide by all your local rules, and everybody will be happy, and we'll keep fighting for much longer. And aloha from Don from Maui.
Hey Don, thanks a lot, and we'll get you back on the show soon, and we can talk more about kite design.
Great, thanks a lot, Ryan.
All right, you have a nice day.
You too. See you.
Bye. Hello, this is Ryan Riccitelli with asnews.net, and today I have Armin Harich. He's the guy from Flysurfer, and he does a lot of the R&D, and he's also a very established paraglider. And why don't you introduce yourself, Armin?
Hello, I'm Armin from Flysurfer. Yeah, I've been doing paragliding for 10 years, competitions and everything, World Cups, and I'm the founder from Flysurfer. And before the paragliding, I was studying physics. Before I was going to school. Yeah. And
you basically dropped out of school to become a paraglider and a kite junkie, right?
Yes, for sure. Whatever I do it 150% of my time. Not so easy sometimes for my girlfriend. I'm always speaking about kite, and before I was always speaking about paragliding, and before I was always speaking about physics, and it's always the same story.
Well, today we want to talk about the Flysurfer Kites, and, I think a lot of people have misconceptions about Flysurfer Kites. They kind of put them into the foil category, and why don't you talk a little bit about the Flysurfer Kites and what makes them different than a traditional foil?
Yeah, the Flysurfer Kites, it's quite different to traditional foils. For example, traditional foils are open cell, so if you smash them down in the water, they eat the water and you can't relaunch it. So you have to close the kites. And if you close the kites, you have to take care that you don't explode if you smash them down to the water or to the ground. So we've got some special blowout valves, for example. You also take care that there's no water that can come in. So you need some special valves. We also made a patent about these valves 4 or 5 years ago. And you also need a draining system, for example, if some air is, some dust or sand is coming in, that it gets out by itself, or if you get some water from some waves inside, that you can still drain out the water. There are a lot of different things. For example, also traditional foil, it's flown on handles. Usually it's not good to fly it on the bar, so you need a very special line system and everything that it's working on the bar. So it's quite different to a traditional foil.
And with that said, a lot of people have been flying foils on the snow, and you guys have actually launched some snow Flysurfer Kites. And why don't you talk a little bit about the kites that you've designed specifically for snow?
Usually I prefer to make kites that is working for everything, but the snow kite market, the people think that open cell foil is maybe better for the land, because a lot of open cell foils are used on the snow. So we also make a bit cheaper product, the Cool, that you can use it on the snow. Because it's open cell, you don't have to take care too much about the exploding, because the air can get out if you smash it down to the ground. And for the Cool, also the line system is more easy. I think it's still the only kite on the market that has a depower system and has no pulley on the whole kite. So it's a bit special. It's very, very simple, but still with a depower system, very effective.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the difference between a Flysurfer kite, a bow kite, and a C-shaped kite. What's the difference in the pull and in the power that a kiteboarder might feel when riding a Flysurfer versus the other kites?
Not all the Flysurfer kites are a little bit different. It's the same like inflatable kite. Now the bow kites are also different to the sea kites. The new pulse, for example, it has also a very massive depower. It's quite similar to a bow kite. The main difference is that you've got a very smooth power, and the depower system is working very linear. So it's not the on-off feeling at the power depower system. It's more constant pull. And also if you push out the whole bar, or if you pull down the depower strap, the kite is not falling out of the sky, it still stays in the air. So to get rid of all the remaining pull, we've got an extra line called FDS. It's a full depower safety line, If you release the kite to this line, then it just legs out, the wingtips are going up, it has almost no remaining pull compared to all other systems, safety systems on the market, because there's no inflatable structure inside, so it can really flat out.
Well, and who does all the R&D and, designing of the Flysurfer kites?
Oh, we are a team. I take care about the kite development, but we also make paragliders and we also make spinnakers. And for example, Manfred Kistler, he was doing a very popular best-sold paraglider that was ever done with the Arcus. He made it for swing before he started the company with me together. And he was a very big help, especially in the beginning. And also our paragliding guys, now it's Arne Werlin and Jürgen Kraus. They make a lot of development in the paragliding business, and we also work together. So if I need some feedback about some special problems, I still can ask them. And so it helps a lot, especially in the beginning when we're starting with Flysurfer. At the moment, the basic things are done, so we have to really concentrate them on the use. So I, for example, need Sebastian Buchmann, who was winning the World Championship Junior Snow Kiting, and he's very good for testing the kites now to get the right feedback that the kite are doing what he wants that they should do, for example.
Why don't you take us through the 2006 Flysurfer kite line?
In 2006 we've got a lot of different products, even more than we had before. Let's begin with the high performance. It's the speed. We had it at the Lightwind Challenge last year that he was doing. It's going from size 5 up to size 17, and this year we will edit a special speed 17. It has a very special fabric called Skytex 27. It has almost half the weight of a regular fabric. Now this kite is in size 17, that's compared to inflatable size 25 square meter, and it only weighs 2.5 kilograms. So it's super light, and it's flying very, very good in light wind. And we also give, for example, to this product our free repair warranty. So if you break it, you get it repaired for free in a lot of different countries in the world. And we've got, on top to this high performance kite, we've got now the Pulse. It will be delivered to our importers in a few weeks. It's more like a bow kite. It has a very massive D-power, but it has a very smooth power. It's very linear, the power D-power system. And it's turning very tight because there's less aspect ratio than the speed, for example. It's also very good for the unhooked tricks, though it's an intermediate for wave riding and for everybody who prefer to have a very easy kite to use. And like I spoke already, we've got two open cell kites. First, it's a Cool. Cool is the kite for snow kiting and for landboarding. It's less expensive than the other products, because it's open, so you don't have to reinforce so much like you have to reinforce a closed cell kite. We still give the free repair warranty for this kite. And we've got also the Paco. It's very similar to the Cool, but the Paco you can directly change it to a paragliding ground trainer. So for people who think about doing paragliding, it's a very good opportunity. It's a crossover between these two products. And we've got also a two-lined trainer kite. It's called Dope. So it's for everybody who wants to have a kite for the first steps in kiting, and for a kite for the young guys, maybe, that they want to start with kiting. So yeah, that's our product range for 2006. So it's overall 6 products, a lot of products.
In one of our magazines, the Kiteboarder magazines, we did a feature on you, and you've taken one of your kites and actually paraglided with it. And why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, I was taking the Speed 17, was starting to do paragliding with it. I said to our paragliding people they should try it, but they was a bit afraid to do it. So I was doing it. I'm the designer, and I know very well what can be do with the kite and what can't be do with the kite. And I'm also very experienced paraglider, so I was taking it and was flying with it, and it worked very well. But it's not a product for everybody because it's very fast. It's a bit similar to the new products that it's called speed racing or whatever it's called, that the people are riding down the snow kite areas or the ski pists. Yeah, but I would not recommend it for other people to do it. Maybe for them acro pilots they could use it, but a paraglider is way more safe because it's more slowly. If you open the brakes at the speed, you go with 70 kilometers per hour, and it's very difficult to land. You for sure can't run so fast, so you need the right technique to land it again, though it's nothing for everybody.
Well, and a lot of people look at the Flysurfer Kites as the light wind kite machine. You know, they do very well in light wind. Why don't you talk a little bit about the advantages of your, 17-meter Flysurfer Kite versus some of the traditional C-shaped kites?
Yeah, you write something about it already in your test, the Light Wind Challenge, and 3 of your testers already have bought the Flysurfer Kite after this test, so we're very happy about it, because even all the testers was riding inflatables before. I think, one of the advantages is that you've got with a Flysurfer foil, you can use a much smaller foil because it's more efficient, because you have got a lot more projected area than all the C-shaped kites, and still a lot of more projected area than all the bow kites on the market. So 17 speed or 17 silver file or silver arrow is more powerful than the 25 C-shaped kite. So it's very good to use it in very light wind. And for example, the German magazine was also doing a test from the lift to drag ratio. That means how far the kite is going to the edge of the window. And we was winning it by far, that the speed has the best lift to drag ratio. So the downwind pull, if you ride the speed in low wind condition, is way less than traditional kites, and it's pointing you much more upwind. So it's more easy to go upwind in light wind, so it's more fun. You can use your time for jumping and everything. And also that you can use a smaller size, it helps that the kite is turning very good. People should just try it and feel the difference. It's also a bit different to ride it, but if you try it, you will see the difference.
Well, and you forgot the most important thing, that you don't have to pump it up.
Yeah, for sure, but for me it's a big point. I don't like to pump it up, but for a normal rider, they don't care if they have to pump it up. If they've got more fun on the water, they would do it. But I would say, I think with the Flysurfer Kite you can have more fun on the water, because it's not pulling you too much downwind. You can also land it more easy by yourself. There are a lot of different things. It's not only the pumping stuff.
Well, and many people are, they're a little hesitant to, fly a Flysurfer Kite or a foil type of kite, basically because of the perception that they're a lot more technical with the line setups. And how do you want to respond to that?
It's very funny. Now if you look for the bow kites, they also start with a bridling, and they've got now also pulleys in the top, although in the bridles. Now they've got also pulleys in the bar. If you look for our kites now, sometimes it looks more easy than the inflatables are. But if you look for the crossbow and the other people, they are not complaining about the bridles, so it's not really a thing. If you know how to bring up the lines, then you're always faster with the Flysurfer than with all the inflatables. Or if it's a bow kite or a C-shaped kite, it doesn't care. You're still faster with the Flysurfer.
Well, I met you when you came over to San Diego to the light wind test, and I saw you riding at about 6 knots of wind, and you were actually jumping. And at one point, you stacked a couple of kites, and have you tried any more of that? And
stacking of the kite was already done with Peter Lynn kites and also with the classic C-shaped inflatable kites. I've been thinking about the foil to stack it, but the problem is the lift to drag ratio will become worse. So in light wind you need a very good lift to drag ratio, that the kite is pulling you upwind and not so much downwind. It's very important. If you stack the kites, you will lose a bit from the upwind pull. So I think it doesn't make too much sense. And when I was trying it in San Diego, I was hooking 2 kites into my chicken loop or into my harness. I was riding 2 kites at one time, and this is very, very difficult, especially in light wind. So I think there's no really market.
Yeah, and also, why don't we talk about the Flysurfer boards, because the one board, I think it's called the Door. Yeah. That board was really popular in the testing, and why don't you give us a heads up on the 2006 board lineup?
Yeah, that's right. The Door, it's a very, very interesting board. Rainer Kauper from Spleen He was building this board 2-3 years ago, and he was starting from nothing. And after 2 years, he had the best-selling brand in Germany with his boards, and so he was joining us together. And now we call the boards Flyboards Made by Spleen, and we are very good selling this board, especially the door. It looks very strange, and the most people say, oh, it looks ugly, I don't want to try it. But if you give the people the board, say, oh, it's fantastic, and they don't never come back, because the door is going upwind very, very good. And it was still in San Diego, we have had some waves, and it was still very good to ride it in the waves, and no one expected this board is working so good in these conditions. For the 2006 board range, it's a very simple board range. We've got 6 different boards, so it's 4 boards who are shaped like the door with a concave outline, and 3 boards which have a normal outline. Yeah, we've got the full product range. And maybe one important thing about the new boards, we optimized all the new boards for the new kites. So the new kites, you never have the problem with bow kites or the Flysurfer kites that you get overpowered if the gust is hitting you. You can just edge a little bit and the kite is moving forward, and if you depower, there's no downwind pull anymore. So all the new boards are very fast, and it's very good with the new kites, whatever it is, a bow kite or a Flysurfer pulse or speed. So I think it's quite different to the other boards.
And what are you working on for 2007?
At the moment, I'm working to increase the production, because we had about 2 times more pre-orders from the pulse than we had with the speed, and the speed was a very good or the best product we ever sold. So I'm working to make the production even bigger, and the same we have to do with the boards. We first have to be able to deliver the demand, and then we take care about the new products. At the moment, we are working on this year products.
Well, and where can people learn more about Flysurfer Kites?
At our homepage, flysurfer.de, we've got here in Europe the list of all the dealers that are teaching with Flysurfer, that are selling Flysurfer. We've got the Pro Center here. In America, it's flysurferusa.com. It's Ted Bautista, and he's building up our dealer network. The best thing is to contact him to ask, oh, Ted, where can I test it? Yeah, we have to bring this up, but first we have to bring enough pulse to the market that the people have the possibility to test it. But I think in 1-2 months it must be possible that you can test it at the main spots.
Well, Armin, I want to thank you for coming on today. A lot of good information, and obviously I'm in Texas and you're in Germany, so it's like 9:30 in the morning here. What time is it over there?
So it's a fine time for me. I also want to say thanks a lot for the interview, and thanks for your magazine. You make a really great job. I must say this really honestly, very good job.
Well, we really appreciate that, and hopefully we can get you back on here sometime soon.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the interview. Greetings to everybody. Okay, thank you.
Awesome, Armin. Thank you.